Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 31 of the Two Bobs Cast. We are A to Z rock and metal podcast, going from A to Z, picking bands, classic bands, new bands, heavy bands, Rush bands, all kinds of shit. So
Rush band. Nice. I love it.
yes, sir. So today we're going to go a little heavy.
Heavy.
But I'm going to say what is up to my partner, Mr. H. How's it going, my friend?
Excellent.
Awesome.
I just mentioned to you right before we started this that listening to this week, I almost feel like I can breathe rather than like, the kind of buttoned up artsiness of Rush from the last 2 weeks. Like, I feel like that just kind of consumed me. And then listening to this, I was like, bang your head.
Yeah.
Not that I don't love Rush and love that stuff too. It just seemed like that was a lot of that, and it just feels good to just kind of go to the total other end of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
And just rock out this whole week with Slipknot. So
yeah, it's fun. It's accessible, especially a lot of the early stuff. It's not super complicated. It's just a bunch of noise that it just works. So I'm excited. Of course, we're talking about the band Slipknot. Man, both of us go way back with Slipknot, so very excited about this.
yes,
I was a late teen when this band emerged, so like right in my like going to shows.
I was like close to 30. I'm like late 20s, but I was like, I remember first time hearing them and was like, what is this? Like, this is, I had never heard anything like this ever in my life, and still have not heard anything like this. Like, they have their own sound and it's not even close. Yeah, it's crazy. All the percussion, I was like, what in the world is this?
Yeah, that's honestly what got me from the very beginning. Was like, I'm just trying to figure out in my head, like, what is all going on? Like, trying to sort it out in your head. Like, all right, I hear these incredible fast drums, but then I hear this other percussion happening, and then I hear these turntables with all these like sound effects and stuff, and then
all the interludes in between songs and clips of God knows what, just amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
Absolutely. All right, well, what do you got about Slipknot?
All right, Slipknot formed in 1995. Nobody had really heard of them at that point. By Sean Crahan, clown, Anders Kolsefny, the original vocalist, and Paul Gray, the bass player. There's a lot of lineup changes. I'm not going to do a lot of member stuff here. I'm going to talk about the notable two people that left. Neither one are by their choosing, I guess. So,
right.
But they originally landed on 9 members. There was a different guitarist on the first album named Josh Brainerd. But then Jim Root replaced him in 98, pretty much after the first album was recorded. There's one Jim Root song, I think, on the first album. And from then on, it was 9 guys for at least the next 9 years or whatever. But 9 guys. What band are we ever going to talk about that has 9 members?
I think this is
none. Yeah, this is it. It's not even close. So the 9 members: Sean Crahan, Paul Gray, Joey Jordison, Craig Jones, Mick Thompson, Corey Taylor, Sid Wilson, Chris Fain, and Jim Root. They quickly rose in popularity upon their full release self-titled album. They had an EP out for a little while that kind of was gaining some traction, I guess, in their area, but I don't think that was available here, at least that I heard. Like, yes, I heard it later. There are songs on there that aren't on the first album, but I was able to find that, in LimeWire or wherever we were downloading things at the time. I was able to actually get some of that and listen to it, but it wasn't available around here for purchase at all. So their first self-titled album just kind of blew up, and it makes a lot of sense, from what we were saying with Nobody Sounds Like Them. This was a totally new thing that nobody had ever heard anything like this before. Nobody had seen 9 guys on stage. Nobody had seen all of the stuff that they were doing. There's been a minor feud with Mushroomhead on who wore the jumpsuits and the masks first, and they kind of were formed about the same time. My opinion is I feel like Mushroomhead was a little before that, because Mushroomhead was kind of 93, 94. Slipknot wasn't formed until 95, but that doesn't mean that Slipknot had heard of Mushroomhead.
Sure, right.
I don't know. Des Moines, Iowa is not that far from here, and that's, it's 10-hour drive-ish or so. It's not like it's out of the realm of possibility, but the sound is totally different. The closest thing is they both have samples in their music, but Mushroom Heads were pulled from movies, and then later on, different stuff that they did. They kind of sounded more sample-wise like Slipknot later on, but at first theirs were pulled from movies and different things that they did, where Slipknot was more stuff that they created, that they put out in sample-wise in between songs, that kind of stuff. But
kind of hopping on that, Brian chiming in. He's from Cleveland too, talking about Mushroomhead, negative feelings going around. I remember that for sure. There was always these things, where people were like, yeah, don't listen to them. And, there was definitely people involved in that for sure.
Yeah. And thank you, Brian, for mentioning that. I'll go into a little bit more of that. Mushroomhead was being looked at by Roadrunner around the time that they signed Slipknot. So at that point, this was 98. Mushroomhead had been around, put 2 albums out already. Slipknot had just put out the EP, but there was a lot of negative feelings because Slipknot got signed and Mushroomhead didn't. Mushroomhead didn't get signed until like 2003 on Megaforce. So it was Eclipse Records first and then Megaforce, but that was like not until 2003. So it kind of felt like this band stole Mushroomhead's image and got the contract that everybody felt like Mushroomhead deserved in this area.
Right.
So there's a sort of infamous fight that went on that at Bob's first show. It's the second time I think I had seen them at Nautica with Machine Head and Amen and
Cold Chamber.
Cold Chamber.
Yep.
And apparently somebody threw, now Slipknot says, a fist-sized padlock at one of the members and hit them and left a big mark. But I don't know about you. That seems a little embellishment. Now, would that hurt like hell? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a fist-sized padlock in my life unless you have the smallest hands anybody's ever seen. So, a fist-sized padlock would be like a 3-year-old's fist, maybe. But anyway, apparently one got thrown, and then Slipknot's version is Mushroomhead, I'm sorry, not Mushroomhead, Machine Head, and the guys in Amen got into the pit and handled it, I guess. But he was there, I was there. Neither one of us remember that.
No,
I do remember Slipknot yelling on stage at the crowd, "Quit throwing shit at us," blah blah blah. Yeah. I'm sure they mentioned Mushroomhead and blah blah blah. But that was about the apex of the whole feud. Like, there was words back and forth, but after a while, they actually talked about touring together, towards like the late 2000s there. So, it wasn't really as big a deal as people made it out to be. It was more the fans, kind of feeling hurt that their band didn't get the big contract. But you know what? For me, honest to God, it's better.
Yeah.
Because Mushroomhead played local shows nonstop. And it's my favorite band probably. I mean, Metallica's right there too. It's a little different for me, but it's one of my favorite bands, and I could see them almost whenever I wanted to.
Yeah.
Had they signed with Roadrunner, they'd have been out touring the country, touring the world. Now, Mushroomhead has done that, but there was years where I could see them 15, 18 times in 1 year.
Yeah.
Because they played Peabody's and the Odeon and the Agora all the time around here, all the time.
Yep.
So it was great for me. I did not mind at all that they didn't get signed. And the fact that they're still around making music is great too. Now a lot of the members are gone, but and the music isn't nearly as good as it used to be. But I still like them, and I can still see them at least once a year. But
Yep.
it was cool then that I could see them so many times. So it was heaven for me. So I was not happy they didn't get their due, I thought, because of being such a great band, but it was
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Like you said, Brian, for sure. Fans did get over it pretty quick. I mean, they like you said, it's not the same style of music, like
No,
in hardly any way.
no.
Just totally different things.
The samples, like I said, that was
Yeah.
the only kind of common theme between them. Slipknot, they don't sound anywhere near alike. Mushroom Head's more Faith No More meets Pink Floyd, where
Yeah.
Slipknot's more way heavier, thrash
the
metal, death
keyboards.
metal, even in ways.
Yeah.
Mushroom Head never got to that level of heaviness. It was just
Right.
totally
No.
different.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, anyway, I did want to mention this too. I don't know if Brian's seen this, but there's a documentary out there called A Clown Short of Destiny. If you can find that movie somewhere and you're a fan of Slipknot or a fan of that scene in Des Moines, Iowa around the late 90s, you've got to watch that documentary. It's fantastic. And what ended up happening was Sean Crahan was the clown in Slipknot, one of the founding members. He owned a club in Des Moines, and that's where all the metal bands played. Like, it was the only place that held enough people for these bands to play. And there were a bunch of bands in that area at the time that played different levels of hard rock and metal. And they were at the mercy of Clown, which is why it's called A Clown Short of Destiny, as to whether or not they could play with Slipknot at these shows. So they basically, because they didn't want anybody to upstage them, they kind of squashed these bands. Now, I know this is only one side of the story, but I've never heard Slipknot refute any of it. Maybe
Right.
they never will. I don't know. Or they're above that because they're so far more popular than any of those bands. But there is so much live music and so much great music in that documentary that all those bands let them use. It's fantastic. Like, they actually said a couple times in that documentary that this could have been the next Seattle. Like, Seattle blew the whole grunge thing up, and all these bands are from there. They're like, this could have been the same for heavy music. And I believe it, because if you watch this thing, there's a bunch of bands in there. You're like, man, these guys are really good. How come I can't find this stuff? And it's kind of because, now I'm sure, Clown will tell you if they were good enough, they would have made it, blah, 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 but without the exposure, like in Cleveland, Mushroom Head, they had Lamb of God open for them before anybody knew who they were. Like, they every year on their Halloween show, they'd have like 8 or 10 bands. Like, Mushroom Head would go on at midnight or 1 a.m. and the show would start at 6 p.m. They would have bands play the whole time, and it was different all the time. They would take all kinds of bands on tour. They tried to help the local talent and tried to help the other bands get noticed around here, where it seemed like it was the opposite in Des Moines, Iowa, where it could have been a huge, heavy music scene, and it all ended up being was just Slipknot. That's all we got out of it.
Yeah.
And that's sad. So I kind of never forgave Clown for that. And I kind of always felt like he was a jerk, to be nice about it because of that. But, oh, man, it's such eye-opening music. I wish I could have heard more from a lot of those different bands, but never happened. So anyway, apparently there's a chapter 2 I just read from mid last year. It says something about a chapter 2. Well, I can't even find chapter 1. I've seen the thing like 3 times. I wish I had it on video somewhere. I don't know where you can buy it. I don't even know where you can watch it. I just looked before the podcast. I can't find it. So, but Clown Short of Destiny, watch that if you can. Have you seen it?
I haven't. No,
Okay.
I've never heard of it at all.
Okay.
So
Look for it. Try to
Yeah,
find it
interesting.
somewhere. I wish I could have just downloaded off of LimeWire or something back in the day.
yeah.
I wish I had a copy of it, but I don't. And if I did, I'd be happy to share it. But if I ever find it, I'll let you know.
All
It's
right.
fantastic. Slipknot, their first album, June 29th, 1999, called Slipknot, sorry. 15 songs. We'll get into the number of songs they put out. It seems like they almost wanted to put out everything. Although in a few albums, later on we'll talk about how they actually had enough for a double album and cut it down. But these first albums, they're excellent albums for the most part, but I feel like they could have been even better had they just trimmed off some of the extra stuff, So these albums are really long. I think this one's over an hour. A lot of them are over an hour. I don't think they got under an hour till the very last album they just put out a couple years ago. The production is great. This was Slipknot and Ross Robinson. Ross Robinson, to his credit, recognized the difference, recognized that Slipknot sounded like nobody else, and did not try to change them, did not try to give them any kind of artistic direction and say, yeah, you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. What he tried to do was refine their sound and tried to recreate in the studio what they sound like playing live. This is an incredible, incredible live band. So he tried to just take that, to his credit, and the band gives him credit for helping make them big, because he did do that. He didn't try to put them in a box and say, now you need to sound more like this because this is what's popular. He just let them do what they did.
Yeah.
And man, what they put out was mind blowing. It was like nothing you'd ever heard, ever. I couldn't believe what I heard. And then the first time I saw them on a second stage at Ozfest in Pittsburgh, and I was like, what in the world is this? It was just insanity, but it was great. I couldn't believe it. So it's just, this album to me, it's kind of top heavy. It's got a way better first half than the second half for me, but I was just blown away by seeing them live and how big they got after that. Like I saw them on that Ozfest on the second stage. That Ozfest didn't come to Cleveland, and then we saw them at that Nautica show. And after that, I think the next time I saw them, well, other than main stages at festivals, was probably like the Convocation Center, which I'll get to a little later, which is like a 10,000 seat arena. Like, so they went from, they didn't play small places very long. So they got big really, really fast. My favorites are Sick, Eyeless, Wait and Bleed, Surfacing. The whole first half of this album, like I could just start it over and just listen to the whole thing again. And then I'll just listen to the rest of it too. But I could really just start the first half over and over again. It's so good. There's no skippers on here. There's a lot of weirdness, but it's okay because it just all kind of fits. A lot of samples, a lot of weird stuff going on, but it's fantastic. So this is a B plus for me. This is ranked number 2. They have 7 albums we're going to rank tonight. This is number 2 for me. I still love it. I still love the first half of this album, and I really like the whole thing overall. Listening to it again, I was like, this hasn't lost anything for me. I almost felt like when I first heard it. Like, I'll never have that level of wow again, but it's just that they sound so much different than everybody else, and it still blows me away, all of the sound that's on this album, on the CD, or in the download, or however you got it. Like, it's crazy, all the things that are going on in there. It's unbelievable. What did you think of Slipknot, and what was your first thoughts of Slipknot when you first heard Slipknot?
Yeah, a lot of what yours are. It's pretty wild that it blew me away for sure right off the bat. I had never heard anything. I just remember going around and being like, have you guys heard this? And I kind of felt like I was a gateway to a lot of, like, at least one group of friends. I remember playing just that the beginning drums of Sick, just like, listen to these drums, like I've never heard anything like it before. It's crazy. And then Corey Taylor, I mean, for what we know kind of about him now and how he's kind of evolved, doing the Stone Sour thing later on, but like, the voice on this album sounds phenomenal. Like, he's just got that incredible scream growly thing, and it's phenomenal.
He whispers, he actually sings, he can scream and growl. You can understand everything. You can like rap almost right. He's got like a distinct voice, like just a crazy talented metal singer. Just crazy talented.
Yeah. So I mean, I was there at the show that you mentioned at Nautica, and then I saw them months later at the Agora, and probably I want to say one of my favorite concert moments of all time, especially seeing them in a place like that. It's so memorable because again, we've all seen the Nautica stage, people in Cleveland, or not Nautica, the Agora stage here, in Cleveland. And I know it's been changed a lot over the years. The theater looks totally different, but back when I saw them, just seeing those 9 guys in those jumpsuits and jumping off of like speakers, and like they were insane. Like I'd never seen anything like it, even more than that Nautica show. It's just seeing them in that little place like that. I think they played with Mudvayne and Dope, I think, at that show, but it was unreal. And that's like a core memory for me. Like going to shows at small places like that. Like I saw like Avenged Sevenfold at the Odeon, and I saw like this is one of those type of things where you see a huge band before they get super huge at like a really small place. Just I love that. Like I love trying to catch bands early when you can go through that. But yeah, so the only thing I can say just right off the bat is I love all these albums. It's really really hard for me to rank these because I kind of look at all of them the same, where it's hard for me to say what's 1, what's 4, what's 5. It's just really hard because I don't think any of these albums are perfect all the way through. I think there's not necessarily skippers, but there's definitely lulls within all of them. This is no exception. And I would have said probably for years that this was one of the top for me, but it's actually dropped a little bit for me just because I think how strong some of their upcoming stuff gets. So actually, this is number 5 for me, which is I love this album. Like I love probably more of it than you mentioned. I would even list Purity, Liberate, No Life. Like I love these songs. Like I played this album to death. But, unfortunately, like going back to them now, and I do listen to most of these a lot. I come back to them a lot. I really like them. I really just appreciate the different ways they've grown over the years and just the creativeness and all that stuff. But yeah, this is number 5 for me, and it's nothing against this album. I still have it as a B plus, which a lot of this catalog is like lower A to upper B for me. So B plus, number 5, Slipknot. I love it. I'm not gonna skip it. And anytime it comes on, it's nostalgia. It takes me back to like simple times, good times, just such fun times at these shows. I just
Yeah, the
really,
shows.
really, really love this band.
I almost forgot about Tattoo the Earth. Did you see that
Yeah.
one? That was in the parking lot at Nautica. So obviously, this fist-sized padlock that got thrown at them didn't deter them from coming back here, because the very next year they came back here, basically headlining this Tattoo the Earth festival tour show that took place in the parking lot of the same venue, not in
Yeah.
where the actual amphitheater is, but in the parking lot. They set up a stage, and yeah, that was crazy too. That was a crazy show, and there was a lot of great bands at that one too. But yeah, so they kept coming here. I don't think I was at that Agora show though. I don't remember that one. I don't think I've ever seen Slipknot at the Agora.
There was only there that one time, and it was
Which is
in
weird because I
2000.
love Mudvayne, especially at that time.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I wouldn't have gone to that, but maybe I just couldn't go. I guess you can't go
Right.
see everybody every time.
Sure.
You got other things in life you got to do, work, whatever.
Yeah, that
But,
was that was right when they released that LD52, so that was their
Yeah.
banger album too.
Yeah.
But that was phenomenal show. Dope opened it, and I loved Dope back then too. I
Yeah.
thought they were great.
Never really a huge fan of Dope, but they played a lot with Mushroom Head. They're not from Cleveland, but they're from somewhere near here.
Yeah.
So they played here a lot. And Dope still plays here.
Yeah, no,
And now Edsel's singing for Static X, which is
Yeah.
if you got a chance to see that tour too, go see them if you're a Static X fan.
Yeah,
'cause
that
it's
was cool.
fantastic. It was really good.
He sounds really good.
Yeah, he does. So, but yeah, Dope's still putting out stuff, and they're still
Yep.
around. They're just not quite my thing, but I do like some of their stuff, and I never mind seeing them live. Like it's not one where
Yeah.
they'll play and I'm just going to the merch booth and going to the bathroom and going to get a beer and just trying to miss as much of them as possible. I'll still watch them because they're fun, but
Yeah.
I'm just not a huge fan of their music.
Well,
But,
to me,
I don't
they
know why I
just-
missed that one, but I did.
To me, they just couldn't live up to that first record. I thought the first record was pretty cool. It's
Dope.
real catchy. Yeah.
Okay.
Felons and Revolutionaries, it was
Okay.
called. Was good. But yeah, they
Yeah, I
could
don't
never
even
live
think I
up.
have any of their stuff, to be honest
Okay.
with you. So,
Okay.
but yeah, anyway, so on to their second album, Iowa, which is where they're from. August 28th, 2001. This has 14 songs on it. It's very long as well. This is Slipknot and Ross Robinson again for the final time. Ross Robinson, broke his back in a dirt bike accident during the recording of this album and came back to the studio. Get this. Came back to the studio one day. He spent one day in the hospital and came back to the studio to keep recording with this band. Um, the the band said that he must have just put all of his pain into this recording, which the band totally admired. They totally looked at this guy like, man, what a badass. This guy
Yeah.
broke his back, comes in there in like a body cast, and needs help getting into the studio and gets in there behind the board and is helping them record this album one day later. That's insane.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine what that must have been like. And apparently Corey Taylor, like, he needed to do weird things to get stuff out of him, I guess. But he apparently recorded the song Iowa, the last song on this album, the title track, naked with vomit all over himself and cutting himself with glass. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know what a person needs to do to themselves to get out of them what they want, but the band basically recalls this as their darkest time. They weren't ready for the success that they got. They all admit that. There was lots of fighting, exhaustion, huge expectations, excess partying, as you can imagine, all contributing to a basically terrible experience recording this album. This is a much darker and more technical album than the first one. The first one's real loose and kind of all over the place. This is much darker and technical and heavier.
Yep.
I think. I mean, they were still heavier is kind of hard to say because there's spots on the first album that are really heavy too. So it just has a darkness to it. I remember not liking this album at all when it first came out because
Wow.
I loved the first album.
Okay.
I listened to this one. I'm like, what is this? Like, I expected the same kind of loose kind of craziness they had on the first album, and I didn't get that.
Yeah.
I got like heavier songs, and I was like, I don't know if I really like this. It didn't have all the cool, weird samples. It didn't have, the stuff that I loved on the first one. But I like it more now than I did then. I have to admit that. I mean, this album, and I'm kind of in the minority. This album really grew their popularity, even though, no one I knew liked it at that time either. Everybody was like, yeah, that's just kind of garbage. I don't know. I don't really like it that much. Everyone kind of said it was just kind of huge letdown, like I felt too. But I did learn to like it more later. Now, this one's still at the bottom for me.
Okay.
Of their list, but this is a C plus. I just don't like as many songs on this one as I do on some of the other ones. My favorites are Disaster Piece, Heretic Anthem, My Plague, Left Behind. Left Behind's the first time I can think of that we hear Corey Taylor sing clean vocals. I mean, clean actual singing, not like not yelling, but still kind of distorted a little bit like you did on the first album. This is actually clean singing, which you're going to hear a lot more of later. But it's a very good song, though. My skippers for me are Everything Ends. It's just kind of dumb. Skin Ticket and Iowa. I didn't care for those songs. I don't know. I guess he didn't cut himself enough, or maybe too much. I don't know. Didn't really care for that song. This one I have as a C plus at 7. I definitely, for sure, in 2001 when I first heard this. Now I'm telling you, I went and bought this the day it came out. I wasn't worried about downloading it. Like, I probably heard a song or two, whatever was released before it, but I went and bought this because I was that excited about it. It was just a big letdown for me. It was one of the bigger letdowns I can remember for a second album for me, where I was like, man, I love the first one. And then I got to this one. I'm like, what is this? This is nowhere near the same. So, but I do like it a lot more than I did then. What did you think of Iowa?
Yeah, I'm on the other end of the spectrum with you.
I figured that's what I was thinking. I'm like, he's gonna have this number one. You watch.
Yeah, this is my jam right here. Same as you. First day it came out, I thought it was so cool that silver wrapping type cover that was on it was really cool. But anyway, I threw this in and I did not stop listening to this record for long time. It was I loved it. It grabbed me right from the get go, and I actually kind of lost interest in this album. Over the last I don't know how long. It
You
almost
think maybe you overdid it? Like you listened to it
yes.
too much at
Well,
first?
well, number one, I overdid it. I admit that. But number two, it kind of got nonsensical for me. Like I felt like he was just F this, F that, just for like the sake of do it. Like to me, it was kind of childish. Like, all right, like I've outgrown this, and they have too, obviously, because they've never really had this type of album since. Where,
Brian's with you.
yeah,
I was his favorite too.
yeah. So I had some rough patches with this, so this wasn't always my favorite, but the beginning I loved it, and then later on it was all right. Do I really need to hear people equal shit over and over 35 times in a row? And do I really need to hear like I don't know. It just kind of was overboard with it, but
I
I want
almost
to,
put that as a skipper, honestly.
yeah,
And they play it every show.
every show,
They
yeah,
always play people equal shit. I just never really liked the song that much. I don't know.
yeah,
It just doesn't do a whole lot for me. There's so many more songs I'd rather hear by them.
yeah.
But anyhow.
But I think, and you probably are onto something because I didn't listen to it for a while, and then I've started seeing them again a lot live with festivals. They came to the Rocket Mortgage, and so I've been.
Did you go to that one? It was last year,
Oh yeah,
right? You went to that?
It was
I did not.
couple years ago.
Was it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually got all their times here that I saw them. It was
Nice.
2022 is
Okay.
when the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse was. So
Wow, I'm surprised it was that
almost
long ago.
yeah, April will be 3 years since that.
Jeez.
But anyway, so starting to see them again the last 3-4 years, I started listening to this record again, and I fell in love with it again. I love it. It's the first album, but it's Jim Root. It's Jim Rootified, and I am a huge fan of Jim Root. I think he's phenomenal. I think he's kind of the X factor of this band. I think, when he was more involved in the writing, which in this he was all over this record for the first time. Obviously, you mentioned the first record; he wasn't hardly on it at all. But this I love the little parts that he does. I just love what he added to the band, and that's why I actually really, really like Stone Sour too. A lot of their stuff because the early stuff had Jim Root as well. So again, he's kind of my go-to with this band over anything, even over like Mick, which I know Mick does a lot of the straight down the middle like guitar stuff, but Jim, especially later when he starts playing the solos and stuff, I love part of Slipknot. But anyway,
we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But this record, it was like a rebirth for me. I love it. I love so many moments of this album. Left Behind, My Plague are classics. Heretic Anthem, I still love it. New A Word, which I'm not gonna say that word is not typically used on YouTube. Iowa is phenomenal. I love that closing track. But yeah,
So he cut himself just enough for you.
Yeah, just enough for me.
Okay, there's just enough vomit, just enough nudity.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, this is number one for me. Again, it's close. It's not a slam dunk. A lot of bands that we do, it's like, oh, I know what my number one's going to be. I didn't really know what my number one was going to be. But it's an A- for me. I don't really. I think kind of what this is I have a lot of classic that I go back to, but I like more songs on this than I probably like on the other albums. I don't skip as much or want to skip as much. I think it's solid most of the way through. So yeah, this is my number one, A-. I just really love it. It was so brutal, so heavy, so just disgusting at parts. Like just so much going on still, but more guitar driven, and I love it. So huge fan.
All right. On to volume 3, Subliminal Verses. They definitely took a break a little bit between these two. There's 3 years. It's 14 songs. Again, could probably use a little trimming and probably would have been an even better album.
Yep.
I have 2 skippers for sure they could have cut off of it. But this is Rick Rubin. So Rick Rubin was obviously a very big producer, still is. But at that time, he was huge. I don't know how the two got hooked up. I didn't read anywhere about Ross and what had happened. Maybe he was just busy and his maybe career took off and he wasn't available. I don't know. But they got Rick Rubin, which you'd think would be a good thing. This is obviously a much more melodic and expanded album with guitar solos,
Yeah.
which you had mentioned. There are some solos on here, which is great. And Jim Root, I'm a big fan of Jim Root as well. He's so underrated. Nobody ever talks about this guy, and when they talk about metal guitar players, his tone, some of the riffs that he writes are just, it's amazing. He's a really good songwriter. He I just I don't I think at first it's just everybody was angry, and I didn't care for the darkness of Iowa. Like I wanted more melody, I wanted more hooks, more stuff to get me interested. So that's why this one is a lot better for me. Um, Clown said that this album was a healing process for them after recording Iowa, but there's so much different information and different ends of the spectrum with these guys. I don't even know what to believe, but I just took a few notes and figured I'd put them in here because I thought they were interesting. But the band apparently was split on working with Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin at the time was working on many projects at once, right? So he's not there all the time. He's working on this project. He's talking to him over the phone. They're sending him clips of stuff in email or whatever. And he's listening to him and giving him direction, but he's not really there some of the times, and sometimes he is. Corey Taylor said that he saw him 4 times, only 4 times during the recording, and he said he hated that.
Yeah.
He's like, if you're going to produce our album, then you better effing be there.
Yeah.
That's how he thought it should be. But, this is your band's 3rd album, and you worked with a guy who was there all the time. I'm sure other bands have found ways to work with Rick Rubin and put out amazing stuff, and he didn't have to be there all the time. So Corey Taylor, this was, I think, when his drinking was getting really bad, and he's kind of a hard guy to like for me. He really is. I put somewhere in the notes in here, I'll get to it eventually, I think, but it's a good thing that guy's really talented because, man, he really comes across as a real jerk. So he has a lot of negative things to say, and sometimes I'm like, dude, do you like anything ever? Is anything ever good enough for you? Like, I guess he's got a drive to him, but it's just so much negativity all the time, it seems like, with him. But I don't know. People love him. He's very talented.
Sure.
He's doing a solo thing now. I do like the Stone Sour stuff a lot. So it's not like I let that get in the way of me being a fan of what he does musically. But when I read these stories, I just kind of roll my eyes. I'm like, what a child, It's just, I don't know. But Jim Root, on the other hand, said he felt Rubin got more out of them, and he loved the album that they made under him. Yeah. So, like I said, there's all these conflicting stories. Clown's out filming videos and doing like artistic video work and stuff during the time. I'm not really sure, other than kind of managing the band. I don't know what he really does. I mean, yeah, he beats on these drums on the side, but he does have a hand in writing these songs. I don't know how much. I don't know, but I like I said earlier, I kind of have a tainted negative perspective of Clown, and I was like, man, what does this guy really do here? But anyway, so he had nothing to say. I didn't read that he said anything about the recording of this album. So Taylor said he was drinking, but this was his worst, where he was drinking. He said, from the moment he woke up, this is his quote, I drank from the moment I woke up until the moment I passed out every day during most of the recording of this album. And he was real unhappy with his vocal takes as a result. Go figure.
Yeah.
He said he started to get things together about halfway through the recording. So this one, he didn't like this album. He thought it was hard to record this album. Guess what? I'll be repeating the same thing on the next album. So again, like, does this guy like anything? I don't know. Yeah. Some of my favorites on this album, I like this album a lot more personally. And it seems like the next album, everybody in Slipknot kind of hated for whatever reason, except Joey Jordison. But yeah, it's weird how there's all these different emotions and different feelings on the same piece of music. It's weird. My favorites are Duality. Both the Vermilions are just beautiful songs. Like, it's just it's fantastic stuff. It's real, like, it's not heavy, but it's acoustic. Like, it's just really well put together and well done.
Yep.
Before I forget, I like a lot Danger Keep Away is a really, really underrated track. It's just a weird, haunting song. This is the great stuff that is Slipknot to me. Like there's samples in there. It feels like it should be a movie soundtrack of some kind, like a horror movie. Like it's so good. So good. And it's the kind of thing that I kind of forget about because I don't necessarily listen to these albums a lot, So I go back and listen to them, and there's songs like this one, and it's the last track on the album. Definitely not one I would cut. And it's only 3 minutes long, but it's just it to me. This is Slipknot. It kind of has a lot of their elements in it that I really like. Skippers for me are Opium for the People and Circle. I don't like either of those songs, and I think this album would be better off with neither song on there. So we'll see what you think of them. But I have this as a number 3 out of 7. I have this as a B. So it's not quite as good as the self-titled for me, but it's better than Iowa for me.
Okay.
What did you think of Subliminal Verses?
So this one was a grower for me,
Okay.
instead of a shower.
Kind of
So,
like Iowa was for me, I'm guessing.
yeah. So I when I first heard this, I was very disappointed. Exactly, just basically what you said. Like I bought this again, probably one of my favorite bands at the time, at least favorite current bands. And I put this in and I liked it. But this second half, like I didn't like it at all. Like after Duality, it was like, okay. And I probably put it away and didn't listen to it much,
Wow.
but I will admit, as their next couple albums came out, I just really came to love this album. It may be because of the Stone Sour stuff too. I feel like they kind of merged some of the styles together. It's like a Slipknot-y rock. I mean, it's still Slipknot, and they still got the crazy drums in there and in the turntables and stuff. But
Totally agree with you on the Stone Sour. And this is where Stone Sour got back together, was around this time. Murder Dolls, Stone Sour, the side projects that a few of these members worked on, they actually credit that with helping save the band and keep the band together. Because they were able to go outside and be creative outside of their group of 9 people, which seemed like it was constant fighting all the time.
Sure.
But, yeah, no wonder that Stone Sour, it's totally right on by you that did creep in here. You can definitely hear some of Stone Sour on this album for sure.
Well, I mean, there was a couple of members, that carried over, so it makes sense. It makes sense.
Total sense.
But yeah, it just didn't hit for me for a while. But again, I grew to love this album. I love most of it. I'm kind of with you. The middle of it is a little. I'd maybe add Welcome. Welcome's pretty good, but Opium of the People, Circle, not the best.
And those are back-to-back songs. That's a good chunk of time where I was like, man, can I have that time back? Like, well, just get it out of there.
Luckily, I knew it was coming after, so to me it was fine. But see, this is one of those where it's not top heavy. To me, this is like top heavy and bottom heavy, where I like that. I don't mind.
I'd agree with that.
Maybe you took some, Circle again. I kind of like what they did. I just don't care for the song, but it's kind of like a lull in the middle to kind of catch your breath before what's coming. But I love it. I've seen them on the Iowa tour, but here I remember they were just like, musically, I feel like they were kind of at their best here. I feel, they were writing great stuff. They
stage show too.
Yeah,
props wise, they had everything nailed down. Everything was like they had enough money. Everything was like mechanical. Like the side drums are moving up and down all over the place. Like it was a visual like craziness. It was awesome. They were awesome to see live. I feel like they were really at the top of their game, both visually and instrumentally at this point. I totally agree with that.
Absolutely. But I love this album. Like I said, just kind of took a little bit of time to grow on me, but I think like second half Slipknot took a little longer to grow on me. Because you kind of just had to realize that they were growing and they were changing and they weren't going to do albums like those first 2 albums anymore. Like that was it. That was that time. Now they're all kind of growing. They all wanted to do different stuff. They're getting older, not old, but they're getting older than just kids jumping around and acting crazy. So, a lot of strong moments on this album. I love the Blister Exists with the snare drums, like the marching band drums in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I thought that was so dang cool.
Yeah.
3-0 is awesome. Duality, maybe one of my least favorite singles, but it's still classic. I still love it. Maybe a little overplayed for me, just a little repetitive, but just a great song. I agree with you on the Vermilions. I think it's phenomenal. I love when they play it live. Just that sample that comes in, the dum dum dum. It's just so cool. The lead into that. Pulse of the Maggots is awesome. I love the Nameless. Just a really, really strong album. This is number 2 for me.
Wow. That grew huge for you.
It grew huge
You
for
almost
me.
chucked it out the window like John
Yeah.
did with Van Halen 3. Thanks for joining us, John. But to
I
be
love
up
it.
at number 2, that's awesome.
It's
That's
just
awesome.
it's going back. It's I think the album that's like stood up the best. Like it's the one that I go back to and I'm like, this is damn good. You know, there's moments of Iowa and self-titled where I'm like, all right, these are just kids shouting, swear words and, thinking it's awesome. They don't swear on this album at all. Not one time. There's no swearing on this album. And I think it was a Corey Taylor. I think he did it on purpose because I feel like people called him out for it. And I feel like I heard this and I can't quote it, but basically people were like, oh, you're just screaming obscenities and that's all you know how to write songs. And then he came out with this album and no swearing, like nothing at all. So anyway, just to show people he could write good songs and, people could like them without, shouting, you want to slit your throat and bleepity bleep bleep bleep, like just really nasty, horrific stuff.
Right.
But yeah, this is again A-, right alongside Iowa for me. Just a different reason why. But yeah, this is number 2 for me. Phenomenal album.
Nice.
I keep going back to it. I love it.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I didn't even know that about the no swearing. So yeah, it boomeranged for him, Johnson. It's funny. Like he threw it out the window and it came right back in the window.
Like,
went right back into the CD player. It's like, you will listen to this.
Right.
But this is the best time I saw them tour. Best time I saw them on tour. Also, I mean, I've seen them a bunch of times. I'm going to guess probably 8 or 10 times I've seen them in total, including festivals and whatnot. But this was at the Cleveland Convocation Center. Lamb of God opened. They were touring for Ashes of the Wake, which I love. Absolutely love that album. And Shadows Fall, which at the time I was so into them too. I loved Shadows Fall back then. So that was a great bill. I was working third shift. It was on a weeknight. I went to the show. I left a couple songs early, so I didn't see the encore for Slipknot, but I had to be at work at 11.
Yeah.
So I went there in my uniform pants and then just had a sweatshirt on and then put my button up, work uniform with my name on it because I don't want to wear that in there into the pit. But I was down there basically in my work uniform watching this show. It was fantastic.
Do you remember
what a great show?
Do you remember the opening band on that show?
It
came on before Shadows Fall.
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Bring it.
Gizmochi.
Yeah. No, I don't know why I would remember that. But I remember those 3 bands, and I loved all 3 of them at that time specifically. And I was like, it was just, I mean, Slipknot basically played everything that I could want to hear from them at that point. They were great, except for the encores, obviously. But the good thing is I had seen them probably, 3 times before that, so I'd gotten to see those songs anyway. But that's probably the best time I saw them.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal show. I was there too.
Awesome. On to 4-year break, and then All Hope Is Gone. August 26, 2008. This is 12 songs. It's still very long, though. This is Dave Fortman, Slipknot, and Chris Vrenna are the ones that produced this album. This is, weirdly enough, I can't believe this when I read it. I'm like, maybe it just isn't even true. This is the first album that was written and recorded in the home state of Iowa. Okay. It was just weird to me. Like, even the first album, they moved to LA pretty quick and did everything out there for the next couple albums, or for the first 3 albums. So this one, they actually decided we're going to do this at home. Corey Taylor said he was able to drive home and see his son every night. Like, they would go record and he would drive home. So it was cool, I guess. It helped in some ways. Probably didn't help in other ways for them to be home. I'm sure some of them probably need distractions from their families or whatever in order to work better or whatever, but it was good for some of the members. But I just thought that was shocking to me. I thought for sure the first album would have been written and recorded mostly in Iowa, but I guess it wasn't. Sulfur was the first song written by Root and Jordison together, and they did it in one evening. And that always, whenever I read stuff like that from bands, that always shocks me. Like, just the fact that they can play their instruments as well as they can, which is something I could never come close to doing, no matter how much I practice or didn't practice, whatever. The fact that they can not only write these songs and play all this stuff effortlessly, but that they can, in some cases, write a song in one night. Like that,
Yeah.
it just comes that a song that good just comes that easy to them. Just blows me away. Absolutely blows me away. I can't even understand what that must be like. I wish I could. Gehenna is got a bunch of styles mixed together, and it's really good. It shows the band's diversity, in my opinion. This is the first album where all 9 members contributed to the writing. Also, it was said, it's been said by them and other people that this is the band at their peak collectively, creatively. That they all contribute like this. If you're going to have an album, this sounded like what all of the members were going to contribute their ideas to. This is what you came up with. So again, Root and Taylor this time kind of hate this album. Root didn't like the production. He felt it was rushed. Taylor didn't like it because of all the circumstances around it. There's a huge quote that I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he said everything was a nightmare. Everything was like pulling teeth. Like trying to, not only recording the album, but trying to get 9 guys together to go on tour. It's just, I even put, this is where I wrote what I said earlier. What a miserable sounding dude. Like, it's a good thing he's talented, because what a miserable sounding guy. He gets drunk and he fights, so he's a terrible drunk. And then when he's not drunk, he's angry that he's having trouble getting 9 people together to do stuff. Like, I'm like, these guys are just raking in money hand over fist. Like, and yet this guy's just never happy. So apparently he gets happier later, I guess. But yeah, I'm like, man, everything I read from this guy is negative, every quote. But anyway, my favorites are Sulfur, Psychosocial, Dead Memories. The guitar tone and Dead Memories is so good.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's just, I don't even know how to describe it. Like the way it hits my ears, it's almost like delicious. Like it's just it's so good. So good. Vendetta, This Cold Black, Wherein Lies Continue, Snuff.
Yeah, it's so good.
Snuff.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's just so good. I like just about everything. I agree. This is their apex. There's no skippers on here for me at all. Again, there's 12 songs. It's kind of long. It's a little under an hour, but not. It's their second shortest album, I believe. But this is A for me. This is number 1. This album has a little bit of everything on it. It's got great guitar riffs. It's got great harsh and clean vocals. It's even got some harmonies with other people singing. Killer groove. It's got some brutal death metal moments. It's even got some tender kind of haunting moments. Like I said, kind of like from a horror movie kind of thing. They do it all on this album, and they do it so well. I love so much of this album. I felt like at this point they can do anything, even if some of them even if some of them hated what they did, like I loved it. So I don't know. I was in heaven for this album. This was the best one for me. It's all good. What did you think of All Hope Is Gone?
Good. It's damn good. And again, I was surprised. I don't think a lot of Slipknot fans love this album, and I think it's because they went all in with, a lot of rock stuff.
Psychosocial's definitely like a rock anthem kind of song, you know.
Just again, I always and I will say this: I always make my rankings, and then I go look and see like what everybody else thinks. Like I'll look at Loudwire, and I'll look at YouTube videos, and YouTubers that I watch, and I'm like, all right, I'm just curious, what do they think? And so many of them had this like bottom 2 or 3.
Really?
Yeah.
See, I should do more of that. I never do that. I should, just to see what everybody else thinks.
I just am curious. I'm always curious. I'm like, I wonder where I stack up. And again, it doesn't change the way I feel about these albums, but I just am curious. Right. So but this, and I'm sure you're gonna discuss these things coming up. But man, this is an apex. It's the last album with Paul Gray. It's the last album with Joey Jordison.
Yeah.
It's really, really depressing when you kind of think of it like that. But yeah, I love it. I'm with you. If I could do a 3-way tie for first place, I would do it.
Really?
Basically, I ranked
Wow.
all of these. This is number 3, by the way,
Okay.
for me. But all the first 3 for me, Iowa Volume 3 and All Hope Is Gone, is all A minuses for me.
Nice. Yeah, same. So basically, same rating for all of
Basically
them.
the same rating, but I
Wow.
had to kind of put them in that
Yeah.
order.
Right.
But I'm with you. The Killing
Yeah, I
Name,
think a three-way tie for first kind of seems like a cop out,
it
right?
does.
Like,
Well,
I
you got to
mean,
rank
I
them,
kind of want to do that too
right?
sometimes, where I'm like, it's just so close, but yeah, you gotta pick one.
Yeah, and I got to kind of look at my whole fandom of Slipknot as a
Yeah,
whole. You know,
yeah,
I
makes sense
can't
that
look at
Iowa would be
now.
number one then for
Yeah,
you because that was the
yeah,
one that hit you the hardest, you know. So if you
sure.
had them all equal, yeah, you got to choose somehow. That makes total
Exactly,
sense.
exactly. But yeah, Killing Name I think is a phenomenal opener. I don't always count those musical tracks,
Yeah,
the music as
yeah,
openers, but
execute,
Killing Name,
right? Yeah,
yeah, Execute. But man, Sulfur probably one of my favorite songs, especially live. I love it. Psychosocial is a phenomenal song. A guitar solo, hello, probably the best guitar solo that Jim plays.
probably. Yep,
Phenomenal.
yep.
Dead Memories, you mentioned that. Like all these songs are so good. Butcher's Hook is so good.
Yeah,
Vendetta,
yeah.
Gehenna,
Uh-huh.
Snuff it's unreal.
Oh,
I can't believe it's a Slipknot song. Like to me, it does sound more like a Stone Sour thing, but
and
they
it's
have
written
yeah,
solely by Corey Taylor, so that makes a
yeah,
lot of sense
yeah,
too. So
yeah. It does make a lot of sense. But that closer,
all
man,
hope
All
is
Hope
gone.
Is Gone
Yeah,
is a banger, and there's like
yeah,
5 writers on that song, so it's
yes,
kind of like to me, it almost is emotional to me. It's like Gray was on it, Jordison was on it, Jim was on it, Corey was on it, and Mick. So to me, like that's like the swan song, literal swan song. Like this is it. This is it for the original, like quote unquote original band, the main lineup. It just this is it, and we're never gonna see this again. It's just depressing, but I love this album. Again, number 3 in a 3-way tie, but I just ranked it third just because that's kind of how I felt. But
yeah.
I'm with you. It's so
So you had
listenable.
them chronologically in rank, right? Like
Yep.
Iowa was
Yep.
one, okay, and then two, okay.
So yeah,
So
second
that,
album, then their third album, then their fourth album. Just boom,
okay,
boom, boom for me.
yep, gotcha, makes sense. All right, on to another break. 6 years between albums. There's reasons for that. Point five, the Gray chapter. I'm not sure. I don't. Do you know why it's called Point Five? I don't think I
Uh,
ever found why they
so
called it
it's the
Point
fifth
Five.
studio album, so I think
It
it's
is.
it's just kind of a play on like and again I'm just kind of going by memory. I
Yeah.
feel like they just feel like they're torn in half, like point five a half. Like they were
Okay.
torn in half because they lost the founder, like
Okay.
the main founder of the
Yeah.
band.
Right. Right. Yeah. So Clown's still there, but Clown and Paul Gray were the only two original members
Yep.
left because the other guy was a different singer than Corey Taylor, Colsefni. But this was when they lost Paul Gray. He was found dead in an Iowa hotel in 2010. So they, I don't know, was he 30 years
Oh yeah.
old? I
Yep.
mean, just not something you'd expect to happen. Um, so that was a very sad time for them. And so this album didn't come out till almost 5 years after that, really. So more than 4 years. So they had a tough time and trying to figure out what they were going to do. They fired Joey Jordison in 2013. Um, this is the band's longest album. That's saying a lot because these are some long ass albums. But this is the longest one. Um, Jay Weinberg, son of Max Weinberg, who's Bruce Springsteen's drummer and Conan O'Brien band leader, his son became the drummer. Basically, Jay was introduced by Max to Slipknot and started kind of going to shows and hanging out backstage with them, and they kind of liked him, and they kind of, they fired Jordison at the time. They're like, well, the job's yours if you want it, kind of thing. So I guess he was like, well, okay, why not join one of the biggest metal bands on the planet? No, that sounds good. So, but honestly, I don't feel like they really lost much there. And Joey Jordison's great. Like
Yeah.
he's a great
Phenomenal. Yeah.
drummer. And I mean, in Murder Dolls, his other side band, he played guitar and sang. So, I mean, this guy is incredibly talented, but he's a really, really good drummer. Jay Weinberg, like you don't really notice that he's missing. You don't really notice that Jordison's missing on the songs that Jordison played on when you see him live because Jay Weinberg is just that good. So they didn't miss a beat there. They did get another bass player. Again, I'm not going to go into too many of the different iterations of people that were in this band just because there's so many members, but
It gets crazy.
it's hard to keep track of. I mean, they lost a percussionist, which is a
Yeah.
guy opposite a clown, and they replaced him. And I'm just not going to get into all that stuff, but I will mention when guys leave, the original guys, at least the guys everybody knows. Let's see, what else did I have here? My favorites are The Devil and I, Skeptic, Nomadic, and The Negative One. Those are my favorite songs, but there's some skippers here too. Lech, I didn't like. Goodbye is boring, but it kind of picks up near the end, so that wasn't as bad. And then If Rain Is What You Want, like that song I could just do without on here. I have this as a B minus. I have it down at 6. This just wasn't, the songs just aren't as strong. I feel like we're missing Gray and Jordison as far as like songwriting goes, and I think it kind of hurt them quite a bit. I don't feel like the band really is that high on this album either, but again, it's hard to tell because you hear different things, and it seems like half the members hate every album they put out, so it's kind of weird. But this one wasn't great for me. I liked it more than Iowa, but the songs just aren't as strong, and it's kind of sad, really. I think they were just in a bad spot for being creative and writing an album without a guy that they all loved and was one of the two parents of basically of Slipknot. To lose one of them so young, that's rough.
Yep.
So, what did you think of Point 5, the Gray Chapter? At least they dedicated the name to him. So
They did. No, that was cool. And so Jordison too. I guess it was stated that he was fired early on, but he really wasn't. So
I put on here that he left, but then I read again later that he was fired, and so I'm like, I don't really know. So I probably should have just said
it's
he's
okay.
just not in the band anymore. But
no, that's okay.
I don't really know what happened. Do you know what happened?
Yeah. So basically, as we know, we lose Joey Jordison shortly after this. Not when Paul Gray dies, but a few years later. So he basically in the end of recording All Hope Is Gone into this, he's diagnosed with a degenerative spine disorder. I think it's like MS, basically. So
that was during this?
It was before this. It was
before they fired or before he left?
Yes.
Okay, that's when he couldn't, like his left leg, he lost use of his left leg.
He lost use of his leg. So it was basically he resigned, but he didn't want people to know that he was sick, that he was going through a thing like this. So I think the band kind of tried to cover for him and was like, yeah, we're moving on from him. We want to go a different direction.
Oh, okay.
And I think later on this came out, but and maybe it's the guys, since they lost another brother in such short amount of time, maybe they're saving face. Maybe he did get booted. Maybe they felt like assholes, that he's going through something.
Or maybe he wasn't around and they did fire him and they booted him. And then they found out he was sick because he didn't want to tell them either. And then they were like, wow, we really look like idiots now that we fired him and he's not even able to play,
Right.
Yeah, so, who knows? There's just so much different information about this band. It's hard to really know what really happened.
So last I had checked, and I think this came from Corey, he said basically that he resigned because he was starting to show signs of being really sick. And that's about all I think he got into it. Then he died a few years later. But
yeah, we did lose him too. And they did dedicate it. So there's not any bad blood there.
Yeah.
Because they did dedicate their most recent album to him.
Right.
Because he passed away before that one came out. I think 2021, I think he passed away. Somewhere in there.
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, it was before this most recent album came out, and they actually dedicated it to him. So there's definitely no bad blood there.
Yeah.
It's just, there's so much different information about what happened at the time. I'm glad you mentioned that. I did I remember reading about his sickness, but I didn't know when that happened, or I thought it was when he was doing Murder Doll stuff, which probably was in between these albums, I'm guessing. So
I
think he was on tour with Murder Dolls, and they had to cancel some shows because he was having some real problems, and they didn't know what it was.
Right.
He got diagnosed, but he eventually recovered. He didn't die from that. He died in his sleep.
Yeah.
But he actually recovered and was able to do more Murder Doll stuff, I believe, and other stuff later. So he was able to regain use of his leg, and he was able to get treated. He had to spend a lot of time resting, but I wonder
if they would have brought him back,
right,
with all that went down later on with Max. But
right.
Just who knows? But anyway,
yeah.
Gray Chapter. It was what I will give them with this is the feel of this album. I think is awesome. I think they start like mood setting here where it's like creepy, like it's just like a real like a dark feel, and not like dark in Iowa sense. Like that was heavy, dark,
Yeah.
evil. This is
Yeah.
more like set the scene, like super creepy. I remember seeing them on this tour, and they started their live show. They started having like little lights, like purple and like these shades of lights and these fans in the background, and it just set like a creepy, like I guess like a horror movie vibe. So I will give them that with this. But this album is very hit or miss for me. I think when it's strong, it's really strong, and I think there's just so much stuff here that it's just hard to stay focused on it. So the ones that I like Sarcastrophe, Devil and I is awesome, Kill Pop is good. I like Custer a lot, Negative One, but that is about it. I don't like a lot of the in between stuff. There's some good moments here or there, but I mean, to me, this is bottom of the barrel. This
You don't
is
like
just
Nomadic, or is that just kind of not a skipper, but not one that you
it's
really
okay.
like either?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
okay.
I
Right.
really
Yeah.
like that one for whatever reason, and it's weird because I didn't. It's one that I didn't realize I liked that much, but when listening to this album, I heard I'm like, wow, that one it kind of caught my attention. I'm like, I kind of like this one. I don't know why I never really thought about that before. And then in the car a couple of days later, my phone connected, and for whatever reason, I had already moved on from this album. But for whatever
Yeah.
reason, my phone decided to want to play this album,
Yeah.
and it played, I think, Skeptic and Nomadic came on again, and I'm like, yeah, I really kind of dig this song. So
Yeah. No, there's
it's
good
weird
stuff.
that happened to me. So one
Yeah.
that I didn't really realize I liked as much as I do.
Yeah. This is I mean, like I said, when it hits, it hits. There's a lot of really good moments with this. I love the feel of it, but it's number 7 for me. It's just it's inconsistent. They're not at their best here, and I can feel it. Like a lot is missing from like their
Yeah,
soul and their
yeah,
whatever. Like they're like in the last album, like the heart was in it. You could like they were going crazy. This one, I just feel like it's lacking. So
yeah.
but it's a C plus for me. I don't hate it when it hits. It hits, but yeah, I just don't go back to this one at all.
Me neither.
I,
That's
I
why I said when I listened to those songs, I didn't realize I like these songs as
yeah
much as I do because I just didn't really care for it that much. And
yeah
I like you said, it felt like there was a chunk missing, like it almost like it wasn't Slipknot anymore.
yeah
In a
yeah
way, it was weird.
yeah. So number 7 for me, C plus. I don't hate it, but that's the worst they're gonna get from me is
Yeah.
a C plus. So
All right.
good stuff when it's good, just too long, not enough memorable things in between. So
All right. On to We Are Not Your Kind. So another 5 years between albums. And we got August 9th, 2019. This one, I don't really know of a reason why there was 5 years in between these two albums. Do you? I know that Clown was saying as early as 2015 that they were starting work on another album, and he and I think Jim, or is it him and Jim that wrote most of this?
yeah,
Um,
and I think
that
that was the problem. I think
they couldn't get everybody together. People
yeah,
doing other
I think
things.
I think it was kind of like burnout slash not sure what they wanted to do anymore. It was just kind of like they kind of had to reconvene, and they found it hard to do.
Huh.
From what I think maybe from interviews from Jim, I think that's kind of what it was. And don't forget too, Corey kicked Jim Root out of Stone Sour too, which I'm sure that
Yeah,
that didn't
that probably
go
didn't
well.
help. Yeah, that probably
So
didn't help. And yeah, and Corey's out touring with Stone
yes,
Sour, and Jim's doing nothing because he got kicked
right,
out. So
yep.
he's probably like, all right, well, I guess we'll go write another Slipknot album with Clown, I guess. Or something.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it's just one of those things where everybody was like, do we really want to do Slipknot anymore? And then like you just finally are like, I kind of want to pay my rent this month. Let's put out a new record. I don't mean like they don't love doing it with each other, but sometimes you have to find it again. Sometimes you got to take some time off and not tour and not do anything.
yeah,
And then
especially once you start hating each other and fighting
well,
and whatever all the time.
exactly. So I think I've heard stories that they just needed some time apart. They were kind of sick of each other, and again, I think Jim had an issue where they had to the band had to kind of talk him into coming back, and they obviously don't want to do anything Slipknot without Jim. So, and I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't do it.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of strange. Like, you figure they had a lot of time off, and granted, some of that was really sad time, with Paul Gray passing, but they had 6 years in between the last album. Like, did they have enough time off?
Right.
Like between those two, I don't know, but yeah, I just wondered why, and I didn't really find anywhere why it was that it took so long. But anyway, apparently this one was in works for a while, and there's a lot of stuff. This one, um, this was the one that I said it was planned as a double album.
Yeah.
Clown had this big overarching concept with multiple interludes. He said kind of like in the vein of The Wall. Not that it was going to sound like The Wall, but it had like songs, but then interludes in between songs, like multiple lengthy interludes to kind of help tell a story. So that would have been interesting. But this one, it was only recorded as an 8-piece too. They fired Chris Fain for over a royalties dispute somewhere in between albums here. But this debuted at number 1. It's the 3rd consecutive album to do so for them, which is crazy for like a kind of an extreme metal band. But now, at this point, like we have discussed, they are not that kind anymore.
Right.
So they just they're definitely more accessible, more radio friendly at this point. But radio also had kind of some middle ground there too, right? This is what was popular, so this is what they were going to play. They had to find ways to play some of this stuff. But this wasn't something they would have played in 2001 on the radio. But by the time 2019 comes around, like you're hearing this stuff, all over the place. So
Right.
it's kind of they met in the middle between the radio and the heaviness of a band like this. But it's pretty cool that heavy music that we like and that we've been listening to for so long kind of got some props. That here this stuff is now popular. It's big. So, and then some of their heaviest material is on this album too. I believe. Clown said there's another 7 or 8 songs recorded with vocals that nobody's ever heard, and about 15 tracks in total. It didn't make this album. A couple of songs got cut because they felt like they had better songs, and other ones were because they didn't end up doing the double album thing. I don't know if it's the rest of the band didn't like the story or what it was. I kind of wish I knew what the story was, and wish I had an idea of what he had in mind to see what that might have been like, So it's been cool to if they put something out with all of that in there as it was intended, maybe let him go and kind of rearrange the songs and put all that stuff in there he wanted to and just put it out again.
Yeah.
Just to see what it was. Maybe it would be even better. Maybe I would hate it because it's twice as long now. I don't know, but it'd be cool just to kind of see what he had in mind. But Unsainted was a song I loved the first time I heard it. I believe that was the first single off of here, and immediately I was like, "Oh, this is so good." I hope the rest albums this album's like this. It's not, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah.
My favorites are Unsainted, obviously, Nero Forte, Critical Darling. I love this song's diversity, both instrumentally, vocally, atmospherically. Like, there's so much in this song, and it's 6 minutes and 25 seconds. This isn't like a 17-minute Rush song. Like, this is 6 minutes, and they put so much. This is why you don't have to have songs that are that long. There is so much stuff crammed into this song.
Yeah,
it's such an arc of different things going on. There's atmospheric parts, there's instrumental parts, there's singing, there's heavy parts, there's all the stuff's in there, right? So there's no reason that you have to do it for 17 minutes or 20 minutes, like they did it in less than 6.5 minutes, and it's fantastic. Spiders is a weird song too, but I love the Halloweenness of it.
Mm-hmm.
With the keyboards, it's very Halloween-esque, and that's a song that I'd love to play like around Halloween. It's a really good song. It's real catchy, so I really like that one. It's I could see if people thought it was goofy, I could totally see why, but I like it. I like everything about that one. And I like Solway Firth a lot too, which again, another closing song that I like. Now, I didn't like naked, vomit wearing, cut up Corey Taylor on Iowa. I didn't care for that song, but like most of the rest of their like closing tracks are pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, I know you liked Iowa a lot though too, so not that you're gonna disagree, but it's just I didn't care for that one as much. But they have some really great closing tracks, which is kind of not a normal thing from what we're used to. So usually that's a song we're like, it's kind of done without this one.
Yeah,
but not in Slipknot's case. Skipper's A Liar's Funeral just didn't work for me. Like, it's kind of similar to Critical Darling, and Critical Darling's right before it. It's kind of too much of the same thing, but to me, Liar's Funeral just wasn't even close to as good as that one. So it was kind of a letdown. I just didn't really care for that one. My Pain, there's a whole lot of atmosphere and nothing in that song, and Not Long for This World are my three that I could kind of do without. That would also shorten this album up probably about 52 minutes, 53 minutes, somewhere in there, which would be right about where I feel like it should be. This I have as a B. I got this right in the middle. I have this at number 4. Again, it's a B. I still like it. It's kind of on par with Subliminal Verses. There's some stuff I really like, but also some stuff I don't. And I think the album would be better off without, kind of like what I just said. So,
Sure.
what did you think of We Are Not Your Kind?
Yeah, this was a good album to hit back with. I was looking forward to it when it dropped. I was really excited. Really like it. When I first listened to it, I was like, man, this could be the best they've ever done. And now that I've had some time to listen to it, it's fallen back a little bit, but my thoughts are very similar to yours, for sure. I think that this is a very strong album that if you just cut out A Liar's Funeral, Orphan, My Pain, and Not Long for This World.
Orphan's another one. Yeah. I struggled with whether I wanted to skip that one or not, but yeah, I didn't really care for that.
If you cut that out, that's like 25 minutes of music.
Yeah,
right
there you go. 48, 50-minute album, whatever, perfect.
Then it's in the conversation with me for one of their best albums of all time. So Unsainted is phenomenal. I love Birth of the Cruel. I think Neo Forte is my favorite song on this album. I love the guitar riff.
Really good. Yeah.
I love the breakdown in the at the end. It's just it's awesome. I wish they would play this live. That's
the thing.
I've seen them so many times since this album's come out, like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, play Neo Forte. Like, I want to hear that. I love that.
Do they play anything other than Unsainted off of this one? I don't feel like they really touch this one.
Solway Firth they play.
Solway, sorry, you're right. They do play that one. My bad.
But that's it. Just those two.
Just that's it.
But Red Flag, I love that guitar riff too. That's a sweet song. I agree with you. Critical Darling is awesome. Solway Firth is awesome. Just one of those atmospheric songs.
Yes.
It's just so good. I love that. Just the little Jim Root part, the guitar in between the chorus and the verse. Like it's just so good. But it's great when it's great, and then it's got like those 4 extra songs where it's like, oh man, this is so close to be that great, perfect Slipknot album. I have it just where you do, partner. I have it number 4. I have it a B+. I have it basically right alongside the self-titled debut for me. So I have those top 3, and then I have the next 2 in like the next tier by itself. So
gotcha.
It's right there. It's so good. I feel like this has a lot more of the heart and soul of Slipknot.
Came back
than
for sure.
0.5.
Yep.
So excellent record.
They came back. They healed, apparently, after losing one of the parents there of the band, and it's just, they got it back. So good stuff. Then we get to their last album, their most recent album, The End So Far, September 30th, 2022, 12 songs. Slipknot and Joe Barresi produced this one. It was announced by Clown they're parting ways with Roadrunner after this album. I think they're now parted. They had been with them since 1998, so that's a long time.
Yep.
It's 24 years. That's a long time. So good. It's good. They got a lot out of each other. I think Roadrunner helped them out, especially at first, and they made Roadrunner a lot of money. So
sure,
and Roadrunner sure made them some money too. So
yeah,
it was a good partnership all in all. But they decided they're leaving Roadrunner. Clown said somewhere during the recording that the band was creating God music. So, and having said that, I'm not sure what Adderall is, but it isn't Slipknot.
It's weird.
It must be God music. That's all I can say.
That's a weird
God
song.
music category. That's a weird ass song. And isn't that what Stone Sour's for?
Basically,
isn't that his outlet for that kind of stuff? Like, I don't know why that's on a Slipknot album. That's a weird one.
Yeah.
Corey Taylor said he preferred this material to We Are Not Your Kind, and said this was a heavier version of Subliminal Verses, which I do not hear at all. It's more experimental, but heaviness is at best the same, if not much less so than Subliminal Verses. So I don't know what he was talking about at the time. So Corey Taylor just says a lot of things.
Yeah, he does.
I'll just call them things. I'm not going to say they're whatever things. They're just things.
Yeah.
Heirloom is kind of a cross between Stone Sour and Slipknot, which I kind of like. So I feel like there's a lot of that on this album as well. So at this point, they put out a lot of Stone Sour albums. This is the 7th Slipknot album, so it feels like there's a lot of that kind of slipping back and forth. Slipping, how about that?
Uh-huh.
Either kind of full on Stone Sour or a kind of a combo of both with a couple of Slipknot heavy tracks thrown in. So there's like a couple that sound like Slipknot, a couple that sound like Stone Sour, and a kind of a chunk in the middle that kind of sound like a mixture of both. My favorites are Yen, Hive Mind, Medicine for the Dead is all over the place, but I like it. So some of their stuff that's all over the place I don't care for. Some of it I like. This one I really do like. Skippers or Adderall. I mean, it sucks that that's the first song on the album, but I swear I could just go right into the dying song, Time to Sing, right away.
Yep.
I don't know what Adderall is. Every time I hear it, I'm like, this is 5 minutes and 40 seconds. I don't know why this song's on this album. But why you're leading off the album with that too, I don't know. Did they play that live? Did they play it live? I wouldn't imagine.
No.
So I'm like, well, I don't know why you put this song as lead off on an album if you're never ever going to play it live.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound like your band. But
No.
I have this as a B-. I have this number 5. It's not great, but it does have its moments. It's just not the best Slipknot for me.
Yeah.
What did you think of The End so far? And also, I wanted to ask, is there any word on them doing anything right now?
No.
I mean, this kind of feels like The End. Honestly, the last song's called Finale. Maybe it is The End. I don't know.
Well, they're playing it Incarceration this year, so they're still
Yeah,
doing
they
live.
are. Okay, so they're still doing stuff. That's
Yeah,
true.
they're
I forgot
still
they were
playing
doing
live.
festivals. So.
Yeah. So
Are they doing Rock on the Ring or the?
No, they are not.
So you're not going to Incarceration, right?
No.
Yeah, Incarceration, garbage.
Yeah,
Don't go there.
It is.
Anybody that's in the sound of my voice, do not go to Incarceration. It sucks ass.
I'm a Sonic Temple person because I like the stadium. You know,
Yeah.
I like the go up to the stage on side stage bands, but I also then like taking a seat and watching a main stage band. So
Yeah.
it's a good mix for me. But Incarceration, it was middle of July in no shade, and it's just hell. And unless there's there would have to be like a really special lineup, and they typically get one of the smaller lineups. Like, you know, they'll get a couple of decent headliners, but
I think like Friday or whatever of this year's Incarceration is the worst festival lineup I have ever seen.
Yeah, possibly.
Ever. It's terrible.
Yeah.
There's one day it's absolutely awful. I'm like, I wouldn't go anywhere near this concert for any reason.
Right.
And no matter where it's playing. It's just I don't know what but anyway, the lines to go to the bathroom are horrendously long. The lines to get food, horrendously long. The lines to buy merch are horrendously long.
Yeah.
There's nowhere to go. You're sitting just on the grass. If it rains, there's no shade. There's no shelter. There's nothing anywhere. There's there's obviously the jail there, that the penitentiary, and you can tour. Yeah. But it's just there. The lines for touring, like if you don't sign up by like 11 a.m., you're not getting in there.
Right.
So it's just I don't know.
I'm with
the whole
it's
thing.
bad.
It's just, the parking sucks. The traffic sucks.
Yeah.
Everything about it is terrible. I don't know. Like I'll never ever go to that again. And we've talked about this before. We'll talk about it again. I'm kind of festivaled out for my life, I think.
Yeah.
But something like Rock on the Range, I keep wanting to call it because that's what it was originally called. But Sonic Temple. I've been to that. I think I've been to Sonic Temple once since it's been Sonic Temple, but all the other times, I think 4 times, I went to Rock on the Range.
Yeah.
So either for all the days or multiple days. I hated the traffic. I hated the parking, but it's better because you can sit. You can go to kind of the outside of the stadium if you want to get some shade. There's some spots under the stands, where you get some shade. Yeah, I mean, you can sit lean up against a wall and just get some shade and relax. There used to only be one side stage. Now there's 2, and it used to be when there was 2, there was one bigger one and one tiny one. Now they're both big, I think. So there's they have huge stages. What I don't like about it is they put bands against each other, which I cannot stand.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you can go through and pick out, like, I want to see this band. Well, if you want to see two that are playing at the same time, you can.
Right.
You can go see a few songs of this one, go all the way through the stadium to the other side stage and go see a few songs of that one, but you can't see them at the same time.
Right.
So
True.
I hate that they do that they pit bands against each other. They obviously, none of them mind, because I'm sure it's the easiest gigs for them. They make a lot of money. They don't play a long set. They don't have to really lug anything around or set anything up. Like, it's all done for them.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure it's great for them, and they probably hate that too, though. Like, why do I have to play opposite of Mastodon or whoever? Why is Down playing on the second stage and I'm playing over here at the same?
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Why do we have to play at the same exact time? It's stupid.
Yeah.
But it's because they want to get as many fans in there as they can. And how do they do that? They have more bands that people like. So they just cram them so full of bands, and they even added a day. It used to be 2 days, and then they added a couple big bands on Friday night, but only a couple. So you just go and see like a normal concert in a stadium, right? You saw these bands. Now they added a whole day. Then they added Thursday night was a few bands. Now I think it's 4 days.
4 full days, yeah.
4 full days, of bands playing against each other. And what are there, 4 stages now?
Yeah.
I think there's 4 stages, right?
Yeah, one of them split into 2, so it's kind of like it's a back and forth thing. But yeah, 4 technical stages. Yeah.
Crazy. So anyway, it's cool because you can go see all your bands in the same few days and take a weekend off and go, camp like you did, which I've never done. I think I would enjoy that more, actually.
Yeah, it's cool.
Than parking, going back to the hotel, fighting traffic again to park the next day. And by the way, parking is almost as much as a ticket is per day. Why I have to pay $60 or $70 for my car to listen to the show from the parking lot, I have no idea.
Yeah,
my car doesn't care. I don't know. It's dumb. Every day you got to pay that much money for your car.
Right.
So it's the stupidest thing. You're parking on grass. Like, seriously? Like, what a money grab. Like, it's just nothing but greed, At least they've made the food a little cheaper. And at least at that festival, there's places you can get food. Where Incarceration, there's like a bank of food tents, and there's just a line across through the seating area for the main stage. The line goes through it because it's so long for food. Because there's not enough there for all the people they have. At least for Science Temple, they've been doing that enough time. They have enough area. They have enough vending spots where you can get food. You don't have to wait for like a whole band's playing time, or longer, and bathrooms and all that stuff. So it's definitely better. So just don't go to Incarceration.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all I got to say on that for now.
Okay.
We've been arguing about festivals for a long time.
Can I give my damn review on this album already?
Yeah. All right, get it in.
All right. The end so far, the end of Mr. H talking, finally. Jeez. All right. So I'm with you. Adderall is horrible. I don't know what they were doing with that. I remember putting on the album for the first time. Like, what am I listening to? Like, you have to go back and check. Like, is this Slipknot? Like, what am I seeing? But this album's very top heavy, other than number 1 for me. Dying Song, Chapeltown Rag, Yen, all those songs I've heard live. Those are really, really good songs. Hive Mind is really good. I like that one as well. I do like Heirloom, you mentioned. These are good songs. It's a good album. It's top heavy with the ones that I go back to. It's good. I like it more than I thought I would. I like it better than the Gray Chapter. That's bottom of the barrel. But this is number 6 for me. It's still really, really good. It's probably like a B- for me. So I come back to this. I think the good songs are really good. So it's good. It's just it's going to be really hard for them to come out with anything that matches those top 5. So, I feel good that they finally at least put out We Are Not Your Kind. At least they put out something later in their career that I really love. Now I'm just kind of on coast with them. I'm good either way. So, yeah, I got the end so far at number 6, B-.
So, do you know if they're creating music or anything? Like, I don't think I've heard or read anything.
Yeah, I don't know.
So could be another 5-6 years, if at all, if they put.
They've been sneaky, so I don't know. They could be. They're around each other more often now. They're playing.
Yeah,
they just toured. Remember, they just did the anniversary tour where they play basically that whole first record. They've been doing that for the past year or so, and then they do some.
That didn't come here though, did it?
No, it came to Pittsburgh, I think, is the closest.
Okay.
But yeah, but they're coming to Incarceration. They came to last year. I saw them at Sonic Temple, and they played most of that first record. So that was pretty cool. They had the red jumpsuits again, which was cool.
Yeah.
It was super cool to see that. But yeah,
they go back to the old mask too. They have like
no, the old masks. I don't think they're ever going to go back to those. Those were I don't know. They did kind of go back to older masks, but
just not original.
yeah,
like
not the
first,
original. No, like well. So the funny thing is, where you mentioned like, what does Clown do? So it's funny when I saw him at Sonic Temple last May. Clown was having like he had like a tooth emergency and he didn't play, so it was only everybody else, and they sounded just the same as they always sounded. It's like, well, thanks, Clown. Thanks.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like for the first half of the set, I didn't even know he wasn't there. Like,
yeah,
it's just one of those deals. Like, all right, at least if somebody's pounding on the keg and whatever, that's fine. So
that's funny.
Kind of backs up what you said.
Yeah, I never really understood what he did.
Yeah.
In the band, I guess Mushroom Head had some of those guys too, and they do it now. Where I guess I got to give Slipknot credit for doing that first. Maybe Mushroom Head did have the jumpsuits first, but Slipknot definitely had the onstage multiple percussionists first. Like Mushroom Head does it now. They have two, and it's cool. Like the drums on stage are lit from underneath, and they put water on there, and so they hit them, and the water shoots up, and it's pretty cool, and it's a good visual effect. So it's like they kind of took the idea and kind of made it a Mushroom Head style, So it's different, but they definitely, I feel like, kind of took that from Slipknot. But yeah, I just, other than that, like I mean, I guess he's there because it was kind of his vision and his kind of idea to get these guys together, and obviously at the time, like I mentioned with the movie, he was the one with the money, so he was the one that had the club. So they're like, okay, so no matter what this guy did or didn't do, he was going to be around. So but to his credit, he's still around, and he does a lot of the visual stuff, a lot of the videos. He does a lot, he directs those. So he's responsible for some of the live stuff they've put out. So he's responsible for working on a lot of that stuff. So I think he does a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I don't know. He gets songwriting credits too, but I don't know that he is that involved with that stuff. And definitely his musical mark is not really on the albums instrumentally in any way that I can really hear. So. But or live for that matter. But anyway.
All right, what you got?
Kind of a slanted view of him. So 1 to 7. All Hope Is Gone, number 1 for me. Number 2, Slipknot, the original self-titled album. Just the shock of it, basically. Subliminal Marishes I have pretty much right there, kind of with Slipknot. Not quite as high, but it's really close. That I have at 3. We Are Not Your Kind at 4. The End So Far at 5. The Gray Chapter, where, like we mentioned, they kind of lost their heart. It seemed like it almost felt like it wasn't even Slipknot, even though it kind of still sounded like them, at 6. And then Iowa at 7. I don't think I ever really got over the disappointment of when that album first came out, but I do like it more now than I did then. And that's the lowest I have, and that's at a C+. So I generally like this band in total a lot. And even their bottom album, I still like quite a bit. So what did you have overall?
Number 1, Iowa. That's just gonna always probably stick there for me. Just a special place with me. Number 2, I had Volume 3, Subliminal Verses. Love that album. Number 3, All Hope Is Gone. Again, if I could do a 3-way tie, those 3 would be on my Mount Rushmore of 3. But those are the order. Number 4, We Are Not Your Kind. Number 5, I had the Slipknot self-titled. Number 6, The End So Far. And number 7.5, The Gray Chapter. Again, just like you, C+. That I don't even think it's that bad. It's just it's really good, or it's not doing it for me, and it's so long. So but good stuff. It's got good stuff on it.
How great is it that we're doing a band for both of us that the worst thing they put out is a C+. Like that's amazing, out of 7 albums. So
phenomenal. Yeah.
That's good stuff. That's a lot of enjoyment listening. It was not difficult. during the week for this stuff. So
Sure.
there's multiple albums I listened to multiple times, even though I'm going to see Kerry King on Friday, and I made a set list for that because he's playing 19 songs. So I haven't even listened to it yet because I've been listening to nothing but Slipknot. Even today, I was done with the research and listening to all the albums yesterday, but I was still listening to more Slipknot today because it's good stuff, and I gravitate towards it. Like I said when we first started the podcast today, as I almost felt like I can breathe. I can totally breathe now because this is like my comfort area. Like Rush kind of felt like, man, it's just so much Rush to listen to. Like, I had to get out of it. This just felt like, oh, this is like
it's so cerebral
a
to
release.
listen to Rush.
Yes, yeah.
This
felt like it's more of almost like a more physical thing. It's almost where more of like a kind of that kind of connection.
Yeah.
But
and I swear, I just put together just now this second. You're seeing Kerry King on Friday,
and we're doing Slayer next Tuesday.
And we're doing Slayer next week.
I know.
It didn't even click with me. That's phenomenal. So
yeah, I think he's doing 4 Slayer songs live too, which is good stuff, and a good array of them. He's got some Hell Await stuff in there, some more recent stuff, and he's got Raining Blood in there. So I mean, it should be really good.
Yeah.
I don't care so much for the openers. We got Alien Weaponry is starting to show off, and I'm not a big fan of them. They're out there. They're different. I see why people like them. I see why people like them. They're definitely different, but it's just not for me. And Municipal Waste, which is like a thrash punk band.
Yeah.
Now, I like thrash a lot, but I like the more melodic thrash, the Megadeths, the Anthraxes, the Metallicas, the Slayers, the Testaments of the world.
Yeah.
That not like all these 2-minute like punk songs where they're just yelling for 2 minutes and then they all kind of all sound the same. There's not a lot of melody there. There's kind of nothing to hook me. It's just, I don't know. It all just kind of runs together. But that's Municipal Waste. So at least they're thrash, but it's more modern thrash anyway. But it's just not something I care for. So you won't hear much about them as far as a review. But I'll definitely talk about Kerry King.
Sweet, yeah.
Next Tuesday. So are we doing a best of 2024 on Saturday?
Just let me know, partner. We'll,
all right. So I think we might have a surprise episode. We'll just work this out right now. I think Kelly works till 12:30, so we can do it about 11. I don't think we'll need much more than an hour.
No,
want to do it 11?
We'll do it at 11. We'll
11 a.m. Saturday morning.
Albums.
We're going to do best of 2024.
Maybe we'll mention a few of our favorite shows.
Yes. Yeah.
What are we doing? 5 albums?
Let's do 5 albums. And we'll do best of 2024 on Saturday, and then I'll give a little review of the show, and I'll do it again on Tuesday when we do Slayer. Okay. So all right, 11 a.m. then it's set. 11 a.m. Saturday morning. We're gonna do a special episode. Get our best of in. It'll be February 1st. We'll try to do it earlier next year and get our buddy Brian involved from Talking to Infinity. But he's kind of podcasted out. He was with us. Dream Theater dropped a new song. Then they had a podcast on Thursday, and I'm sure they talked a lot about that. And their podcast wasn't even about that. It was about music that came out in 2007. So if you want, go listen to that. That's some interesting stuff they do too. He's a little podcasted out. So he was going to do this with us, but we'll make sure he does it with us next year. So
let me share a bad opinion with you real quick.
All right.
We love you, John, but number 1, Caress of Steel.
He's lying.
Okay.
He doesn't believe that.
I was going to say.
Caress of Steel.
That's about the one album by Rush that I don't think that I could defend in any way, that being number 1.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. So thanks for listening, John. We appreciate you.
Yeah, we really do. And he's not a big Slipknot fan. He told me he might not be here because he just isn't a big Slipknot fan, but he came anyway. So we totally appreciate that, man.
Yep. Shout out to Brian, my buddy Brian. Thanks for hanging out. So we'll see you then Saturday for our best of, and then next week we'll be doing Slayer. So hopefully we'll see everybody at some point, all the people. So hopefully we see everybody then. Anything else?
No, that's it. Apparently I talked too much, so I'll shut up now.
It's all good. All right. Well, from the Two Bobs cast, we will see you in the next one.
Rock on.
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
what would you say you do here?
God damn it. Bob, we love playing here tonight. My brother's ready.
It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
You must possess strength to inflict pain, Bob.